Welcome back, everyone, to the South End Zone. I am Chad, and you see Tyler. We are locked and loaded for episode 3 in our series of Pump the Brakes. Another SEC team is going to be right in the crosshairs this time. And I want to reiterate something that Tyler said when we first started this series with DJ Lagway, and then as we went into Drew Aller, is we're not saying we can't stand these guys. We hate them. We wish ill on them. We don't want them to be successful. We are just trying to bring a little dose of realism and like realistic expectations into some of the incredible hype that is around these players and these teams. And I think we can see it with DJ Lagway on a certain level. We really struggle to see it with Drew Aller. But I got to be honest, with this episode's candidate, I see it the most of all of them that we've
Me
talked
too.
about, and that is Lenora Sellers. And the team is South Carolina, and that's more the issue for both of us, I think, is with them. But before we get into it, I want to remind everybody, don't forget to like, to share, to comment, and to subscribe, because we love to hear what you have to say. We want to go back and forth with guys. We want to have, well, this is a conversation. This is what makes we're still in talking season for another couple of days until Farmageddon happens and we actually have real football. But as you know, talking season for college football never ends, because as soon as the off season starts, there's stuff to talk about as we lead up into fall camp and through fall camp. Right before the season starts, there's stuff to talk about. And then once the season starts, we get to talk about all the surprises, make our predictions, continue to see where things are going, and see who can turn it around, maybe who is going to fall apart. And with this year's season, I think we are looking at a team that is getting a tremendous amount of hype because they are one of those teams that turned it on late in the season after starting off, maybe not struggling, but kind of being Jekyll and Hyde a little bit.
For sure.
South Carolina had a lot of close losses. They had some
Yeah, they
upset
did.
wins. You look at their schedule, and they were like projected to possibly uh, be an SEC title contender if they don't stub their toe early like they did. Um, Blew out Kentucky early, lost a close one to LSU at home that I think every South Carolina fan will tell you they got robbed, they got
They
cheated.
did. They
There
did.
were penalties called on pick sixes, but in both cases one time they hit the quarterback late, like you can't do it. Yeah, it's kind of cheap, and Nussmeier definitely flopped. But hey, you can't hit the quarterback like that and just hunt him down after a pick. The pick still counted. On the other one, they horse collared him, and that's why he threw the pick. So it's like, all right, I get it. Maybe don't miss the field goal, and you send it into overtime instead of losing. But then they got blown out by Ole Miss. They lost a close one to Alabama.
Dude, that was the
Um,
one. That was the one
yeah,
for
that
you and
was the
I.
one. And Sellers had a receiver open and just sailed it on him. So, but those close losses and the upset wins that you go down to the end of the season, the down the stretch, they blow out Oklahoma, then they beat Texas A&M after Texas A&M was like riding high as the best team in the SEC in their own minds. And then they blew out Vanderbilt. They beat Missouri in a really close game, and Sellers had one of his best games in that one. And then, of course, that big win against Clemson, the last game of the season at Clemson too.
Yeah.
So I get it that there's some reasons to be very excited and optimistic about this season. But the reason why this is a pump the brakes episode is because I see this a lot with the NFL. I see it a lot in college football too, and you're seeing it with there's people who are doing it with Florida. There's people who are doing it with Penn State, where the assumption is all the times where you had a brush with death and escaped, we don't even look at that. We just move forward and we count those as wins, and we just look at the things that we came up just a little bit short on, and we just assume we're better now, so those things are going to be improved upon. And I'm just here to tell you that a team that barely beat Old Dominion early in the season, a team that got blown out by Ole Miss and then choked in their bowl game against Illinois, and had Shane Beamer about to try to fight Brett Bielema.
I would have paid to let that go on.
I know, right? This is a team that you've got to be really, really cautious about getting out. Again, this is the whole pump the brakes. The reason we're saying pump the brakes is we're not saying slam on the brakes, just tap the brake. Get out of cruise control. There's a top up ahead. You're going 85 in like a 65. Pump the brakes a little bit, get back down to like 68 to 71 so you don't get a ticket. And then we'll see how things are going. You can still make your destination, which is hopefully a playoff spot for South Carolina, right? But if they do that, they're going to have to do it missing a lot of guys.
Which is
no Rocket Sanders, no Kyle Kennard, no John Simon, who everybody look. All due respect to Nick Harbor, dude's a beast. He's a physical freak. He's a monster. But John Simon led in receiving yards, receptions, and touchdowns last year for South Carolina. So it's not this simple. Oh well, we're just gonna automatically. We lost 3 regular season games last year. Lost our bowl game. Went 9-4. All right, cool. I guess we're gonna go 10-3, 10-2, 11-2 this year, and contend for the SEC championship and make the playoff and get like a top 6 seed. What? Calm down. You've got a brutal schedule ahead. We're going to get into that. But you're only returning 4 defensive starters. Now, Dylan Stewart, another stud. But how much attention is going to be focused on him now that you don't have Kyle Kennard on the opposite side? Now you can double Dylan Stewart. Jalen Kilgore, great DB. Okay, cool. But like you're going to need more. You're only bringing 4 guys back. You're returning 5 guys on offense. And you did add Restful Sleep from Utah State, good running back, put up some decent numbers, but this is not a automatic plug and play. Rocket Sanders was a monster, and on top of Restful Sleep, they do still have Oscar Attaway, who was pretty good last year, filling in for Rocket Sanders when he was dinged up a little bit, and also just to like spell him from time to time. But let's get into that brutal schedule, right? Because this is the thing where it really starts to get crazy for South Carolina and Lenora Sellers. Starting off at Virginia Tech, and that is going to be an emotional game. It's Shane Beamer going back to where his dad became famous, a place where he coached too for a little while. And he's been, that stadium has to mean something different for him. Blacksburg is just a different. Too. Yeah, Blacksburg is a tough place to play, and it's a there's going to be a lot of nostalgia, a lot of memories, all that kind of stuff. He's going there. They're not coming to South Carolina, so it's going to hit a little bit different. But I think they should win that game, right? But it's not going to be an automatic. Then they get South Carolina State. That one is automatic. But listen to this brutal run to close out the season, because it is just like they get like a couple of breathers.
Yeah.
It's Vandy at home, and we know like Clark Lee is going to have that team ready, and we don't know what kind of, Red Bull and who knows what 5-hour energy Diego Pavia is going to be shooting up right into his veins before every game. That dude is just like, he's on a different level. But Vandy at home, then at Missouri this time, Kentucky at home, that's a little bit of a breather for him. Then at LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, at Ole Miss, at Texas A&M. Then they get a little breather against Coastal Carolina, and then they get Clemson coming into Williams-Brice Stadium.
Another national championship contender right at the end of the season.
Like, it's littered with top 10, top 15 teams, and we're just assuming they're only going to lose 2 of those games all year. And I'm just saying, pump the brakes a little bit. And even with as much as I say, Lenora Sellers is probably the guy who I would put at the top of this list as most deserving of some of the hype, I still think it's too much. We're comparing him to Cam Newton, and I want everybody to remember who Cam Newton was, and let's see if this is what you remember, because Lenora Sellers, just like some of the other guys we've talked about, had 2 300-yard passing games last year against Missouri in a crazy game, and then against Wofford the next week. So He threw for 660 yards and 8 touchdowns in those 2 games. He threw for 2,000 yards and 12 touchdowns in the other 13 games. So, again, back to like the Drew Aller comparison. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, 7 games if you include the first game against Furman. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry. That was 2 years ago. This is a career game log. So yeah, because he's like a third year sophomore. I'm sorry, 6 games this past season under 170 or 175 yards or fewer passing, and only 2 games over 300. Now, he does run the ball more than any of the quarterbacks we've talked about so far, so that's definitely something to contend with. And you look at what he did against Clemson: 166 yards on 16 carries, 2 tuds, 15 carries for 106 against A&M, and a touchdown. 88 yards against LSU and 2 touchdowns, and that was really in like a half of football. But yes, those are big games, and that's big game performances. But I also, again, this is a pump the brakes episode, not so much about him, although I do think that maybe people are getting out a little ahead of their skis on him. I also think that when you look at the team, the expectation is that this team is going to make it into the playoff this year because they just missed out last year. And why would they not be better than they were last year? And I just gave you a whole litany of reasons why they possibly, if not probably, are not going to be better record-wise than they were last year.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like, so we talk about the first 2 guys. Like when I talk about Drew Aller, it's like if that team is successful, in my opinion, it's going to be despite Drew Aller. If
Right.
this team is successful, it's going to be because of Lenore Stellars, despite the rest of the team.
He's going to have to carry him.
It's going to be
Yep.
him. It is him. And you talk about Cam Newton, 140-something NFL starts. The rest of that team combined, the rest of that offense combined, 1 NFL start between all of those guys. Yeah. That is what carrying a team looks like.
Let's look at let's look at Cam Newton's year, and I guess maybe it's not that bad of a comparison, but I do think if you look at some of these games here, so he had Louisiana Monroe, he had a good game there. That was that probably tipped the scales a little bit more than it should have, but he did have 216 and 3 touchdowns against Alabama in that big comeback victory where they came back from down 3 touchdowns and walked them down. They beat South Carolina in the conference championship, and he had 4 touchdowns, 335 yards in that one. Where's the national championship game in here against Oregon? It's not on here. I don't know why, but anyway, because he won the national championship that year. But he had 1,409 yards rushing. He had 217 against LSU with 2 touchdowns. He had 188 and 3 touchdowns against Arkansas. 198 and 4 touchdowns against Kentucky. 176 and 3 touchdowns against South Carolina before the national or this conference championship. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, unless Lenore Sellers puts up those kind of numbers, we're going to be looking at a team that is probably on the outside looking in at both the conference championship and a playoff berth, and is probably going to lose 4 games in the regular season this year, if we're being honest.
I think that's totally fair. I think that like they're going to finish at that. Honestly, 9 wins feels like a solid number again for them. Like, if you have not seen this channel before, Chad and I wanted nothing more for Lenore Sellers to walk into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. Let's be very clear about that.
And I wanted nothing more. You go back and look at our episode where we were giving the playoff predictions. I was pounding. I was standing on top of a desk, shouting at the top of my lungs that South Carolina should be in there.
Right. So we're gonna put that in perspective. We're not saying we don't want anything good for him. We want the best for actually every single one of these guys in this series. But the bottom line is they have a lot to overcome to be able to do the things that the general public and the fans of these teams want them to do. That's all we're saying, ladies and gentlemen. We're excited for this college football season.
And they're going to have to go. They're going to have to go on the road to Missouri, and that's the show me state. All we're saying is show me. You got to prove it. So, yes, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe, and to tell all your friends about it, because we love doing this show, and we love everyone who comes through, and we appreciate y'all. For Tyler, I am Chad. This is episode 3 of our Pump the Brakes series, and this is the South End Zone. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.